Welcome to my channel, The World of Science Fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
The wind screamed across Tethra Valley like something dying, carrying ash and the burnt grass smell of a world left to rot. Through the morning mist, a figure emerged, limping, bent under weight. James Calder's uniform hung in tatters, dark with old blood and newer dirt, torn where shrapnel had kissed his ribs 3 weeks ago. His left leg dragged. Over his shoulder, like a corpse he couldn't bury, hung a black flag with a skull, the mark of the Imperial Punishment Corps. He'd walked 11 days to reach this place. The gates of Tethra Village rose ahead, crude iron welded to salvaged mining equipment, topped with sharpened scrap. Beyond them, figures moved. Tall, blue-skinned, armed, women, all of them. James stopped 30 meters out. A spear buried itself in the ground 3 paces ahead, still vibrating. "That's close enough." The voice came from the wall. A woman, another spear ready, deep blue skin, corded arms, leather armor reinforced with iron. Real armor, combat scars across her knuckles. James raised empty hands. "I'm unarmed." "You're breathing," another voice called. "That's armed enough." More women appeared. 12, 15, 20, all with weapons raised. "Who are you?" James let his hands drop. "Someone who stopped believing in orders." Silence, then spears rising. "Back away." James stepped forward. The spears flew. He moved on instinct, muscle memory overriding his screaming leg. First spear whistled past his ear. Second, he dodged with a torso twist, feeling something tear in his side. Third grazed his shoulder, splitting fabric and skin. Fourth embedded beside his boot. He kept walking. Blood ran down his arm. His shoulder burned. He didn't stop. "Stay back." James reached the gate and pulled the flag from his shoulder. Heavy, stiff with old blood. He threw it at the base. "I came to return what we stole." Wind filled the silence. Dust swirled. Blood dripped from his fingertips. The gate opened, just enough for one figure to step through. Taller than the others, blue skin marked with combat scars. Dark hair pulled tight, eyes like winter storms, pale gray. She looked at him, the flag, then back. "You've got nerve, human." James felt blood soaking his sleeve. "Used to. Now I just have time." She moved closer, hand on her knife. When she was close enough for him to see silver flecks in her gray eyes, she stopped. "I'm Lyra. That flag killed my father." James didn't look away. "Then I brought it to the right place." Her hand moved to the knife. Behind her, women tensed. "Bind him," Lyra said. "Bring him to the square." They tied his wrists with rough rope that bit until his fingers went numb. 2 women flanked him, spears never more than a hand's width from his ribs. The settlement was larger than it looked. Maybe 300 people. All women, all watching. Children peeked from doorways, eyes wide with taut fear. The square was packed earth surrounded by the largest structures. The well stood at center, stone and metal, maybe 15 meters deep, with a crank mechanism. Someone had carved symbols into the stones. Names maybe, prayers. They shoved him to his knees. An older woman emerged from the meeting hall. Lighter blue skin, almost gray, face lined hard. She wore no armor, just rough spun cloth, but everyone stepped aside. Lyra stood beside her, holding the black flag like she wanted to strangle it. "I'm Matra," the older woman said. "Elder of Tethra. You've brought poison to our gates." "I've brought honesty," James said, "which might be the same thing." Lyra stepped forward, circling him. Predatory. "Your kind called it peacekeeping. My kind called it orders." She stopped in front of him. "And now? Now it's a stain I can't wash off." The words scraped raw. "But that doesn't mean I stopped trying." Lyra crouched, face level with his. He could see the scar from temple to jaw, white against blue. Should have killed her. "You think one act of remorse changes what you were?" "No, but it might change what I do next." She studied him, working through calculations, threat assessment, risk analysis. Finally, she stood. He could be a scout. The others could be following. "Then we kill him now," someone called. "Wait." Matra raised a hand. "He walked here alone, injured, carrying a flag that marks him enemy to everyone, including his own. She looked down at James. Why? James took a breath. Ribs ached. Because I'm tired of being what they made me. Because I watched that flag fly over places that don't exist anymore. Because I can't undo what I did, but I can stop doing it. Silence. Matra spoke slowly. He lives until sunset. If his words are truth, we'll know. If they're lies... She didn't finish. James almost laughed. Bitter. Exhausted. Sunset? Guess I'd better make it a productive day. A ripple moved through the crowd. Surprise, maybe humor. Even Lyra's mouth twitched. Watch him, Matra ordered. If he moves toward children or weapons, kill him. They left his hands bound. The sun climbed. Heat pressed down. James sat in the well's shade. Guards on either side. Women moved through the square with forced normalcy. But he felt their eyes measuring, judging, waiting. Lyra approached with a water skin. Didn't hand it to him, just held it. Why that flag specifically? Because it's the worst one. Imperial Punishment Corps. We made examples of places that resisted. My father's village was an example. I know. You were there? No, but I was at places just like it. 14 of them. Lyra's jaw tightened. You're honest about being a monster. Is that supposed to make it better? It's supposed to make it true. She poured water into her hand, let it drip through her fingers. Each drop hit dust like an accusation. You want forgiveness. I want to stop waking up seeing their faces. The simplicity caught her off guard. She stared, then walked away, taking the water. Around noon, shouting erupted near the forge. James turned his head. Guards' spears very close, and saw women running. Something wrong. Cracking stone. The well, someone screamed. James lurched up. Guards moved to stop him, but he was already looking. Stones on the north side shifting, tilting inward. Water seeping between them. Not controlled flow, but uneven leak. An upper stone shifted with a grinding sound. Women crowded around trying to shore it up with planks and rope. Working blind. Stop! James shouted. You're making it worse. Lyra appeared, breathing hard. Quiet. The support beam underneath, it's rotted through. You're putting pressure on the weak point. How would you know that? Because I've built and destroyed enough of these to know what failure looks like. He turned to her. Untie me. Not a chance. Then watch your water drain into the ground. Another stone shifted. Water flowed faster, muddying the ground. James lowered his voice. You want water or pride? Lyra's eyes flashed. For a moment he thought she'd drive her knife into him. Instead, she grabbed his wrists and jerked him forward. Try anything. You'll bleed out before you hit the ground. She cut the ropes. Blood rushed back. Pins and needles. James flexed his fingers, then moved to the well. Women stepped back, weapons ready. He circled once, looking at stone placement, stress points, water flow. Mind working through the puzzle. I need rope, a lot of it, and that fallen beam by the forge. Why should we give you anything? Because in 10 minutes this well collapses completely. He looked at Lyra. Your choice. She nodded curtly. Get him what he needs. They brought materials. James tested the beam. Heavy, salvaged, dense wood. He laid it beside the well. I need to go down there. Absolutely not, Lyra replied. You could sabotage it from inside. Or I could fix it before you lose everything. But you're right to be suspicious. So come down with me. If I do anything wrong, kill me in a confined space where I can't run. She studied him. Water continued leaking, turning dust to mud. Finally, she nodded. They lowered themselves using bucket rope. James first, then Lyra with knife drawn. The walls were slick with moss. Water came to James's knees, murky with sediment. Below the waterline, he felt the rotted beam with his feet. Soft wood, crumbling, held together by prayer. Stones above had nothing solid to rest on. Hand me the rope, he called up. They lowered it. James worked in dim light, hands moving with practiced efficiency despite cold water numbing them. He wrapped rope around the new beam, tying knots from basic training, then positioned it beneath the weak point, using his body as lever. The flag, he shouted. Lower the flag. Silence. Now, before the whole thing comes down. The black flag descended, dripping. James took it and wrapped it around the seam, where stones leaked worst, using fabric to create pressure. Hold back water while the beam took weight. He tied it tight, shoulders screaming. Water flow slowed, stopped. James waited, holding his breath, watching for collapse. The stones held. Beam held. The flag, soaked and stretched, kept the crack sealed. Lyra watched in silence, knife ready. "You fixed it," she said finally. "Bought you time. You'll need to rebuild properly, but it'll hold for now." They climbed out. When James emerged, blinking in harsh sunlight, the entire village watched. Water had begun to clear, rising as the aquifer refilled. James looked at the well, at the black flag wrapped around its stones. He laughed, rough, painful. "See? Even my past holds water." Someone laughed. Startling, unexpected. Others joined. Not many, not loud, but real. Lyra shook her head, corner of her mouth pulling up. "You fixed what our best builders couldn't," she said. "Not bad for a man on borrowed time." The flag hung there, dark against stone, wet but holding. A symbol transformed. Evening came fast, mountains stealing light early. James sat against the well, clothes damp. Guards had moved back slightly, still armed, but no longer treating him like immediate threat. Women passed, some nodding. Children crept closer to stare before mothers called them back. Lyra brought food, hard bread, dried meat. She sat a few feet away. "You didn't have to help," she said. "Yes, I did." "Why?" James chewed slowly. "Because doing nothing is what got me here. Because fixing things is easier than living with breaking them." "That's not redemption." "I know, but it's something." They ate in silence. Village settled into evening routines. "You built something good here," James said. "We built something safe. Different thing." A horn sounded from the eastern wall. 3 short blasts. Every woman froze. Lyra was on her feet instantly. "Raiders!" someone shouted. "Coming up the valley road." James stood slowly. "How many?" Another horn blast. Closer. Sound of engines. Not many. Maybe 2 or 3 vehicles. In a world where fuel was precious, that meant serious intent. James moved where he could see the road. In failing light, dust clouds. Vehicles emerged. Modified mining transports. Armor welded to frames. Weapons mounted. 8 figures, maybe 10. His stomach went cold. He recognized the lead vehicle. Recognized the man standing in its bed. "Lyra," he said quietly. She was beside him, tense as wire. "What?" "They're not raiders. Imperial deserters. Punishment Corps. Same unit I was in. They're here for me." Her hand closed around his arm, hard enough to bruise. "You brought them here." "I didn't know. You brought them to us." Her voice shook with fury. "Let me deal with this." "You've dealt enough." The vehicle stopped outside spear range. The man James recognized jumped down. Reeves, former sergeant, scar across his bald scalp. First to laugh, last to show mercy. "Didn't think you'd crawl to their kind, Calder," Reeves shouted. James pulled free of Lyra's grip and walked to the gate. Behind him, weapons being readied. "Didn't think I'd crawl at all," he called back. Laughter from vehicles, rough, ugly. "You took something that doesn't belong to you," Reeves said. Armed but not raised yet. Still talking. "That was good. Talking meant time." "I took something that didn't belong to any of us," James replied. "The flag is core property. You know the penalty for desertion. Death, same as staying. Funny how that works." Lyra appeared at his shoulder with her spear, her presence magnetic, drawing every eye. They saw her, saw the women lining walls, and something shifted in their posture. "Cute," Reeves said. "You found yourself some blue-skinned guardians. I found people who remember what your flag did to them. And you think that matters? You think standing with them makes you clean? You're still one of us, Calder." "Then come take the flag back," James said. He walked to the well, feeling every eye, and grabbed the wet flag. It came free with a wet sound. He carried it back and held it up. "It's right here. Come get it." Silence. Wind rattled through the valley. The men shifted, exchanging looks. James could see it. Calculation. memory of what that flag meant, superstition grown around symbols when you'd seen enough people die beneath them. The flag had been their talisman, protection, identity. Now it hung dripping from a traitor's hands, defended by people they'd spent years dismissing, but they weren't dismissing them now. Reeves raised his weapon, but didn't fire. "This isn't over, Calder. It is for me." "Yeah? We'll see how long that lasts." The vehicle started moving, backing up, turning, but they didn't leave. Stopped a kilometer away, just visible in gathering dark, engines idling. "They're not gone," Lyra said. "No. They're waiting." "Yes. This is your fault." James looked at the flag in his hands. "I know. If they attack, they won't. Not tonight." "How do you know?" "Because they're scared. Not of me. Of you. Of what it means that you're standing together." He met her eyes. "That scares them more than any weapon." Lyra stared at him, then turned and walked back, shouting orders. Guards doubled, weapons distributed, children moved to inner structures. James stood at the gate, holding the wet flag, watching distant vehicles. Sunset had passed. He was still breathing. Night fell. Cold seeped through wet clothes. The village didn't sleep. Women rotated on walls, eyes never leaving the distant glow. Lyra found him still by the gate. She carried 2 blankets, offering one. "You should rest," she said. "So should you. I don't trust you enough to turn my back." "Smart." They sat near the well, flags spread across a bench to dry. Someone had tried to clean it, but mud and water had stained it, turning black to gray, skull emblem barely visible. "Tell me about your father," James said. Lyra was quiet. Then, "He was a miner. Before the war, deep shafts, dangerous. 16 hours coming home covered in dust, always smiling." She pulled the blanket tighter. "When the Empire came, they conscripted workers. My father refused. And the Punishment Corps came, made an example, lined up miners who'd refused, shot every third one. My father was number 6. Her voice steady, but James heard what that cost. Then they burned the village, 47 people. I watched from the hills where my mother had hidden me. I was 12. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Don't say it matters you weren't there. You wore the uniform, carried the flag. You're part of it. I know. So why come here? Because disappearing is what they want. Deserters who vanish are lessons in cowardice. But someone who walks back, brings the flag to the people it hurt." He opened his eyes. "That's a different lesson." "What kind?" "That maybe some things can't be redeemed, but they can be acknowledged." Lyra turned to look at him. In firelight from the distant forge, her face was angles and shadows. "You think acknowledgement is enough?" "No, but it's honest." Something moved in her expression, not forgiveness, but maybe understanding's beginning. She gave a small nod, barely perceptible, before looking away. "They'll attack in the morning," she said. "Probably. We'll fight." "I know. Will you?" James thought about the men out there. Men he'd fought beside, drunk with, survived with. Men who'd saved his life and whose lives he'd saved. Now his enemies because he'd chosen to walk away. "Yes," he said, "I'll fight." "Why? They're your people." "No, they were my unit. There's a difference." Lyra studied him. Finally she nodded. "If you betray us, I'll kill you myself." "I'd expect nothing less." She stood, pulling the blanket around her. "Get some sleep if you can. Dawn comes early." James didn't sleep, but he closed his eyes and tried. Dawn came with mist, thick, white, rolling down from mountains. James was awake when Lyra shook his shoulder. "They're moving," she said. He followed her to the wall. From there he could see the raiders' camp, or what was left. Fires out, vehicles gone. "Where?" Answer came as engine roar from the south. They'd circled during night, using mist for cover, approaching from the blind side where wall was lower, defenses weaker. "Everyone to south wall!" Lyra shouted. Women scrambled, grabbing weapons, rushing to positions. But James could see the timing. Raiders would be there before defenders were in place. "Wait," he called. "It's a feint." Lyra turned. "What?" "Listen, Those engines are wrong. Too loud. Too rough. Revving for noise, not moving fast. How do you know? Because it's what I would do. James pointed back east. Real attack is coming from the original direction. Draw you south, hit you east where you're weak. Lyra's eyes widened. She spun, and new engine sounds emerged from mist. Quieter, closer, faster. Split defense, she shouted. Half south, half east. Move. Women split with practiced efficiency, but James saw it wouldn't be enough. Attacking two fronts, Village didn't have enough fighters. He grabbed a spear. What are you doing? Lyra demanded. Giving you better odds. James jumped from the wall and ran toward the east gate. Behind him, Lyra shouting orders, women following, but he was faster. Vehicles burst through mist like sea creatures. Two of them, armor plating reflecting gray light, mounted guns firing. Shots went high, meant to intimidate, still sent women diving for cover. James planted the spear and stood in the gate's center. Vehicles stopped. Reeves stood in the lead transport. Step aside, Calder. No, we outnumber you. This doesn't have to be bloody. It's already bloody. Been bloody for years. But it stops here. One man can't stop this. Behind James, women emerged. 10, 20, 30, all armed, all standing together. Lyra appeared at his side, spear raised. He's not alone, she said. Standoff stretched. James saw men calculating, eyes moving from him to women to walls and back. Tired, scared men looking for an enemy they understood. This unity between the man who'd abandoned them and the women they'd been taught to conquer. This they didn't understand. You've got 10 seconds, Reeves said. Then we come through. Try it, James replied. Reeves raised his hand. James took a breath, heart hammering. The first shot rang out, not from raiders but from the south wall. Then more shots, rapid fire. The raiders' vehicles rocked as impacts hit armor. Smoke grenades detonated. Confusion rippled through attackers. The southern vehicles, the decoy, were suddenly taking real fire. Women hadn't split forces evenly. They'd weighted the south wall. Gambling James was right, now hitting the lighter force with everything. Reeves's attention split. He turned to look south, and in that distraction, James moved. He threw the spear. Not a killing throw. He aimed for the mounted gun, striking the mechanism. Spear lodged in firing assembly, useless. You still throw like recruits, James called out. Open fire, Reeves screamed, but his men hesitated. They saw women standing firm, saw James between them and target, saw this wasn't going to be simple. This was going to be a fight. Fights meant casualties. Now, Reeves roared. Guns opened up, not at women, at the gate itself. Metal screamed, warping, sections tearing. James dove sideways, hit ground hard, rolling. Lyra was moving too, directing fire. Women returned fire. Improvised weapons, salvaged guns, thrown spears. 2 raiders went down. Vehicles started backing up, engines howling. Hold the line, Lyra screamed. James got to his feet, breathing hard. Through smoke and chaos, he saw Reeves, saw rage and betrayal. This isn't over, Reeves shouted. James didn't answer, too busy pulling a wounded woman back, watching the gate, staying alive. Vehicles retreated, disappearing into mist. Gunfire stopped. Smoke began clearing. Silence, broken only by sobbing. Someone shouting for medical supplies. Someone cursing in pain. James looked at the gate, shredded, hanging from twisted hinges, metal scattered. But it had held, barely. Lyra appeared beside him, blood on her armor, not hers. She looked at the well, at the flag still wrapped around the stones, holding. Her hand rose halfway toward it, fingers trembling, then stopped. She let it fall back to her side and turned away. You were right about the attack pattern. Small comfort when they'll be back. Will they? James looked where vehicles vanished. I don't know. Maybe. But we hurt them. That matters. 3 wounded, 1 serious. Could have been worse. Could have been genocide. She looked at him sharply. Is that what you expected? Every time. No survivors meant no witnesses. No stories meant no resistance. That's what I was part of. Lyra's jaw tightened. Help with the wounded. If you know field medicine, use it. He did. Years of training kicked in as he moved to where women were being laid out. He worked alongside them, hands steady, calling for supplies, directing care. Hours passed. The mist burned off. Village reorganized. Guards reinforced. Gate patched with scrap. Children kept inside. Everyone moved with purpose, but fear lived beneath efficiency. They'd won, but winning once didn't mean survival. Matra found him washing blood from his hands at the well. "You fought for us," she said. "I fought with you." "Different thing. Perhaps. But you stood between your former brothers and our gates. That means something. It means I made a choice. Doesn't make it right. Doesn't make it wrong either." She gestured toward the village. "Before today we were afraid. Built walls, yes, but also built isolation. Kept everyone out because letting anyone in meant risk. Smart policy. Safe policy. Not the same as smart. Not the same as good." She looked at him directly. "You brought danger to our gates, but you also brought change. Made us look at what we'd become. Not just survivors, but people so afraid of being hurt, we'd stop being people." James didn't know what to say. "The wounded woman, Kira, she'll live, because you knew what to do." Matra's voice softened. "The skills you learned to kill, you used to save. That's transformation. Is that different from redemption? I don't know, but we're going to find out together." She walked away. James stood by the well, hands clean but mind processing. He looked at the flag where it hung drying, stained, torn, transformed. A shadow fell. Lyra. "They'll come back," she said. "Tonight, tomorrow. They know our defenses now." "Yes, so we need to be ready. Or," she looked at him, or we change the equation, make it not worth their while." "How?" James thought about what drove those men, what scared them. They're deserters, running from collapsed empire with nowhere to go. They raid because they need supplies, because it's what they know. But they're outnumbered by any real force. They survive by being unpredictable, hitting weak targets. We're a weak target. You were, until you fought back, stood together. He gestured toward the gate. They expected to roll through, expected you to scatter, but you didn't. Because you warned us, because you listened, because you chose to believe me even though every instinct said not to. That's what scares them. Not weapons, not walls. The unity. Lyra was quiet. "So we make sure they know we're unified." "Yes, but more. We make them uncertain, make them wonder what else we're capable of." "How?" "By doing what they don't expect, by reaching out instead of fortifying, by offering choice instead of just resistance." Lyra's eyes narrowed. "You want to negotiate." "I want to give them a reason to leave us alone that doesn't involve bleeding." "They won't listen." "Some will, not all, but some. All we need is doubt. Doubt spreads faster than courage among men already running scared." She studied him, testing the strategy. Finally nodded. "We'll need to discuss it with Matra, with the council. But if we try this and it fails, then you'll have every right to kill me yourself." "I was going to anyway," she said, but something different in her voice now. Not warmth, but absence of absolute hostility. Progress. The council met in the main hall as afternoon shadows lengthened. 12 women, including Matra and Lyra, sitting in rough circle with James standing center. Everyone had lost someone to the Empire, to men like him. Everyone had reason to hate him. He told them his plan anyway. "You're insane," one woman said. Senna, scar from eye to collarbone. "Walk into their camp and talk? Send a message. Make an offer." "What offer?" "Leave us alone and we won't have to kill each other. Need supplies? We can trade. Need rest? We can negotiate. Need to keep fighting? Then understand every attack costs you more than you gain." Why would they believe that? Because I'll tell them. Because I was one of them and walked away. They're scared of what that means. That's leverage. "It's suicide," and another woman, Tala, said quietly. "Maybe, but they'll think about it first, and thinking is all I need." Matra spoke. "What do you gain?" "Time, uncertainty, maybe peace." James spread his hands. "I know what I'm asking, but here's truth. Those men aren't monsters. They're scared, tired people taught that violence is the only language that matters. I want to teach them a different language. And if they don't want to learn, then nothing changes. They attack, you defend, people die. Same story that's been playing out for decades. But if there's even a chance, there isn't, Lyra cut in, but she didn't sound certain. Then let me prove it. Silence filled the hall. Finally, Matra spoke. If we allow this, you go alone. No backup. If they kill you, we don't retaliate. Just strengthen defenses. If you betray us, then you were right about me, and you should make sure the next man who tries to apologize doesn't get past the gates. You have until dawn, Matra said. After that, we bar gates and prepare for siege. James nodded and turned. Lyra caught his arm at the door. Why are you really doing this? Because I'm tired of being afraid, he said, and because maybe they are too. Night came faster than James wanted. He stood at the patch gate, white cloth tied to a pole. Universal parley signal, though he wasn't sure raiders would respect it. Lyra stood with him. You don't have to do this, she said. Yes, I do. Why? You've done enough. You could stay, help us prepare. And wait for them to attack again? Watch more people die? James shook his head. I've spent enough life waiting for violence to come to me. Time to walk toward it and see if I can change its mind. She handed him a water skin. If you don't come back, then make sure the well stays fixed. Make sure the flag keeps holding. And make sure whatever you build here, it's built on choice, not just survival. Lyra nodded. What you said earlier about transformation versus redemption, I think I understand now. Redemption means the past is erased. Transformation means the past becomes something new. You can't erase what you did. None of us can erase what was done to us. But maybe we can transform it into something that hurts less. James felt something tight in his chest loosen. That's better than I could have said it. Don't die before you get a chance to use it. He smiled, real, maybe the first in months. I'll do my best. The gate opened. James walked out into darkness, carrying the white flag and nothing else. Behind him, the gate closed, guards taking positions. Ahead, distant glow of raiders' camp. Closer than before, maybe a kilometer. They'd moved in after the failed attack, maintaining pressure. He walked toward the fires. Night was cold, sky clear, stars bright. James's boots crunched on gravel. He kept the white flag raised, kept walking, even when he heard weapons being readied. Figures emerged from darkness. 3 men, rifles raised, faces hidden by masks. Far enough, one said. James stopped. I need to speak with Reeves. Calder? The man stepped closer, lowering his mask. Torres, younger than the rest, barely 20. They said you'd betrayed us. They said right. So why come back? To offer you a choice. Torres laughed, bitter, uncertain. What choice? Leave. Find somewhere else. Let this place be. And if we don't, then keep dying for nothing. How many did you lose today? 2? 3? And what did you gain? Nothing. Because they stood together, and that's something you can't break with guns. Torres's jaw tightened. Reeves won't negotiate. Then I'll talk to the others, one at a time if I have to. I know you're tired. Know you're scared. The Empire's gone. There's no support coming. No extraction. No end to this except what you make yourselves. And you think playing nice with locals is an end? I think not making enemies is a start. Torres was quiet. Finally, he jerked his head toward camp. Come on, but if you try anything, you die. Understood. They walked together into camp. 5 vehicles in defensive circle, maybe 15 men total. Exhausted, angry, desperate. Fires burned in metal drums. Weapons stacked nearby. Professionals living like scavengers. Reeves stood when he saw James, hand moving to sidearm. You've got balls. Or no sense? Hard to tell. James stopped outside the vehicle circle. I came to talk. Talk? You shot at us. You attacked them first. We attacked a target, same as always. Except this time the target fought back. This time you lost. James looked at each man. He saw exhaustion, doubt, fear poorly hidden. How many more times you want to lose before you admit this isn't working? What's your alternative? Surrender. Coexistence. Laughter rippled through men, hollow, unconvincing. Those women, James continued, they're not your enemy, just trying to survive, same as you. They've got resources, water, food, shelter, things you need, things you're dying to take. So trade, negotiate, find a way to get what you need without bleeding for it. Reeves stepped closer, face inches from James's. You really think it's that simple? You really think we can just forget years of training, forget what we are? Forget that they're human? James finished. Yeah, I think you can, because the alternative is dying in this valley fighting over scraps while the world moves on without you. Silence, fires crackling, men breathing, weight of decision. Why should we trust you? Reeves asked quietly. You shouldn't. You should trust your own eyes, your own losses, your own exhaustion. James spread his hands. I'm not asking you to trust me. I'm asking you to stop making enemies when you don't have to. One of the men, older, gray-haired, weathered, spoke up. What exactly are you proposing? Safe passage. You need to move through this valley to reach other settlements. You can pass without harassment. You need water or supplies, you trade for them fairly instead of taking. You need medical attention, they have healers who can help. In return, you leave them alone. No raids, no threats, no revenge for today. And if we say no, then tomorrow they fortify. Bring in allies from other settlements. Turn this valley into a killing ground that bleeds you dry every time you approach. You win, you lose. Either way, you've made enemies who remember. Reeves stared at him for a long time. Finally, let me talk to my men. Take your time. I'll wait. They moved away, forming a huddle near one of the vehicles. James stood alone by the fire, feeling heat on one side, cold on the other. He heard raised voices, arguments, cursing. This could go either way. Torres approached, keeping his voice low. Half want to accept, half want to shoot you and attack at dawn. And you? I'm tired of shooting people who are just trying to live. Torres looked young in the firelight, young and scared. Does that make me weak? Makes you human. My father always said mercy was for people who could afford it. Your father was wrong. Mercy is for people who can't afford anything else. Torres nodded slowly, then returned to the group. 20 minutes. Finally, Reeves emerged, face unreadable. 3 conditions, he said. 1, you stay in that village. You're our guarantee. They behave, you live. They don't, you die. Agreed. 2, first trade happens tomorrow. Water and food. We pay fair price. Ammunition, salvage, medicine. No tricks. I'll relay that. 3, Reeves hesitated. The flag stays there, with them. We don't take it back. We leave it as a marker. Something that says this is where it ended. James felt something shift in his chest. Agreed. But Calder, if this goes wrong, if they use this piece to arm up and attack us, if this is some long trap, I will personally hunt you down and make sure you regret every choice that brought you here. Clear? Crystal. Reeves offered his hand. James took it. The handshake was brief, hard, carried the weight of years and blood in shared survival. Go back to your blue skins, Reeves said. Tell them they've got a deal. James turned and walked out of camp, carrying the white flag, legs shaking with relief and adrenaline. Behind him, he heard men talking, heard tones shift from anger to something like hope, cautious and fragile. The walk back felt longer. James kept expecting gunshots, kept expecting betrayal, but nothing came. Just darkness and stars and his own breathing. The gate opened before he reached it. Lyra stood there, spear ready, eyes searching his face. Well, they agreed. Trade tomorrow. Safe passage. No more raids. She stared at him. Just like that? Not just like that. Like 20 minutes of arguing and threats and doubt. But yes, they agreed. Lyra looked at him for a long moment, then did something that surprised them both. She smiled. Not a half smile or hidden smirk, but a real smile that reached her eyes. You actually did it. We did it. You, me, Matra, everyone who stood together today. James looked past her at the village. Now we just have to make it stick. One day at a time, one moment at a time. They walked back through the gate together, And this time, when it closed behind them, it didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a door. Dawn broke clear and cold, painting the valley amber and rose. James stood by the well, watching women prepare, not for battle, but for trade. They'd brought out supplies, set up a table, organized everything with the same efficiency they'd used for siege preparation. But the mood was different now. Cautious, yes. Suspicious, certainly, but not hopeless. The raiders arrived at mid-morning. 3 vehicles, not the full force. Reeves in the lead, Torres driving. They stopped outside the gate, engines idling, waiting. Lyra opened the gate herself. "You want water?" "And food if you've got it," Reeves called back. "We've got it. What are you paying?" They negotiated there in the open, voices carrying across the valley. Ammunition for grain, medical supplies for dried meat, salvaged electronics for access to the well. It was awkward, tense, both sides watching for betrayal, but it happened. Real trade. When the raiders left an hour later, their vehicles were loaded with supplies, and the village had resources they hadn't had before. Not much, not enough to change everything, but enough to matter. James watched them disappear over the ridge, feeling something in his chest he barely recognized. Not peace, not yet, but the possibility of it. Lyra appeared beside him. "Think they'll come back? For trade? Yes. For war?" James shrugged. "Too soon to tell. Matra wants to see you." He followed her to the meeting hall, where the old woman waited with several council members. They looked tired but less hostile than before. "You did well," Matra said simply. "We'll see if it lasts. Even if it doesn't, you showed us something important." She gestured around the hall. "For years, we've believed that safety meant isolation, that the only way to protect what we'd built was to keep everyone out. But you, by coming here, by being honest about what you'd done, by choosing to stay and fight and negotiate, you showed us that maybe safety and connection aren't opposites." "Maybe," James said carefully. "Definitely," Lyra added. "We're still scared, still suspicious, but we're also curious now about what else might be possible." One of the other women spoke up, Kira, the one James had helped treat. Her arm was in a sling, but she was standing. "You fixed our well with the symbol that hurt us, made something terrible into something useful. That's more than we thought possible." James looked at each woman in turn. "So what now?" "Now," Matra smiled. "Now we figure out what good looks like. Not just safe, good. And you stay," Lyra added, "if you want." "As what? A guarantee? A hostage? As someone who knows how to fix things. We've got a lot that's broken. Could use someone who's learned to transform damage into something useful." James felt the weight of the offer, felt the absurdity and hope of it tangling together. A man who'd spent years breaking things, invited to stay and repair them. A deserter finding home among the people his uniform had terrorized. It shouldn't work. It shouldn't even be possible. But maybe that was the point. "I'll stay," he said, "on one condition." "What?" "The flag stays in the well. Every time someone draws water, they see it. They remember what it was and what it became." Lyra nodded slowly. A reminder. A transformation. Days passed, then weeks. The initial trade with raiders became regular meetings, still tense, still careful, but increasingly routine. Other deserter groups heard about the arrangement and approached cautiously, testing whether the peace was real. Some tried to take advantage. Those learned quickly that peace didn't mean weakness. James worked. He helped rebuild the gate properly, reinforcing weak points. He taught combat medicine to anyone willing to learn. He spent long hours at the well, ensuring the repairs held, that the flag-wrapped stones stayed secure. Lyra worked beside him most days, initially as guard, then as partner. They developed a rhythm. She understood the village's needs. He understood engineering and tactics. Together they solved problems neither could have managed alone. But she still kept her knife close. Still watched him when she thought he wasn't looking. Still touched the blade's hilt whenever he moved too quickly or spoke too loudly near the children. One evening, as they sat by the well watching sunset paint the valley gold, she spoke without looking at him. "Do you still see their faces? The people from before?" "Every day." "Does it hurt less?" "No, but it hurts differently. like scar tissue instead of open wounds. Still there, still aching, but not bleeding anymore. That's something. It's everything. She turned to look at him then, gray eyes catching the light. Her hand rested on her knife, not threatening, but present, a reminder. You know what I realized? That day you walked up to our gates, I wanted to kill you, not just for the flag, but for what you represented. All the men who'd hurt us, who'd taken from us, who'd taught us that trust was just another word for weakness. What changed? You didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't make excuses, just brought back what you'd stolen and stood there while we decided what to do with you. That's the opposite of what I expected. Expected you to beg or threaten or run, but you just stayed. Didn't have anywhere else to go. No, you had everywhere else to go. Could have kept running, but you chose here. That's what scared the raiders. That's what's changing this place. Not the trade or the peace talks or the fixed wells, the choice. Her fingers traced the knife hilt slowly, deliberately. But choosing once doesn't mean choosing forever. People change their minds, get scared, go back to what they know. James held her gaze. Are you asking if I'll betray you? I'm saying I haven't stopped preparing for that possibility. She didn't blink. The council thinks you've proven yourself. Matra thinks transformation is real. But I remember my father's face when he realized the men he'd worked beside for years were going to kill him anyway. I remember how hope looks right before it dies. The words hung between them like a blade. So what do I do? James asked quietly. What proves I'm not waiting for my moment? Nothing. That's the point. Lyra's hand finally left the knife. Trust isn't proven. It's chosen. Every day. Every moment. And some days I choose it. And some days... She looked at the flag in the well, faded and fraying. Some days I still see that skull and remember what it meant. James looked at the well, at the flag wrapped around its stones. Faded now, more gray than black, but still holding. Think it'll last? The well or the peace? Either. Both. I don't know, but I know we're going to try. She stood stretching. Her hand brushed the knife one more time. Habit, reflex, reminder. Come on, dinner's ready, and if we're late, Senna will give away our portions. They walked together toward the main hall, where smoke rose from cooking fires and voices carried on evening air. Children played in the square, children who were learning that not all outsiders were threats, that sometimes broken things could be fixed, that transformation was possible even from the darkest materials. As they approached, a child ran up to James, young, maybe 6, blue skin bright with health. Is it true you used to be a soldier? James glanced at Lyra, who shrugged. He knelt to the child's level. Yes. And now you fix things? I try. Can you teach me? He felt something catch in his throat. Sure. What do you want to learn? Everything. She grinned, then ran off to join the other children. Lyra pulled him to his feet. See? Transformation. Or redemption. I still don't think there's a difference that matters. She led him toward the hall. Come on. Inside, the hall was full. Women gathered around tables, sharing food and stories and laughter. They made space when James and Lyra entered, not grudgingly, but naturally, as if he'd always been part of this. Someone passed him bread. Someone else offered water. Kira asked about the gate repairs. Tala wanted to know if he could look at the forge bellows. He answered, ate, listened, contributed, participated, belonged. Later, after the meal, after evening tasks were done and the village settled into night rhythms, James stood alone by the well. The flag hung there in starlight, a shadow against stone, barely visible but always present. Matra approached quietly. Thinking? Wondering if I deserve this? None of us deserve what we get, good or bad. We just get it. But maybe deserving isn't the point. Maybe the point is what we do with what we're given. She looked at him. You know what this village was before you came? Safe, isolated, surviving. Nothing wrong with that. It kept us alive, but it didn't make us live. I brought danger. You brought choice, brought the possibility that safety and connection could coexist, that we could trade instead of hide, that we could transform symbols of pain into tools of survival. She touched the flag gently. This thing killed my brother 30 years ago, when the first expansion came through. He wouldn't kneel, so they made an example. I hated this flag more than I've hated anything. James stayed quiet. But now it holds our well together, keeps our water from draining away. And every time I see it, I still feel the anger. But I also feel the transformation. Feel how something terrible can become something necessary. That's not forgiveness. It's not forgetting. It's just continuing. Is that enough? It's all there is. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching stars wheel overhead, listening to the village breathe around them. Finally, Matra spoke again. James, thank you for bringing the flag back, for choosing us. I chose truth. You were just brave enough to accept it. She smiled. Maybe we're both braver than we knew. Morning came with wind and scattered clouds. James woke early and went to check the well. The water was clear, cold, perfect. The flag held firm. Everything was as it should be. Work began with the rising sun. Women moved through the square. Children played. Guards watched the valley approaches with less tension than before. The village had found a rhythm. Not perfect, not without fear, but functional, alive. James stood by the well, looking at the flag one more time. It was disintegrating slowly, threads coming loose, fabric thinning. Soon it would need to be replaced or removed entirely. But for now it held. Lyra walked up beside him, 2 cups of something hot in her hands. She offered him one. To transformation, she said, raising her cup. To choosing differently, James replied. They drank together as the sun climbed higher, painting the valley in shades of gold and amber. Around them, life continued, imperfect, uncertain, but real. The flag hung in the well, holding stones together, transforming from symbol of death into tool of life. And above the village, above the rebuilt roofs and reinforced walls, above the children playing and the women working, and the men who'd once been enemies now trading fairly, above it all, the morning wind caught the edges of that tattered flag and made it flutter like a promise. Not a promise of redemption, not a promise of forgetting, but a promise of transformation, that even the worst symbols, the darkest pasts, the most terrible choices could become something new, something useful, something that held water instead of spilling blood. James Calder had walked into Tethra Valley carrying death. He'd been met with spears and suspicion and every right to be killed. But he'd chosen honesty over deception, stayed when he could have run, fought beside those he'd once been taught to conquer. And in return, they'd given him something he'd never expected to find, a chance to transform. The flag would eventually dissolve, its fabric returning to dust. But what it represented would remain, carved into the stones of the well, written in the history of the village, lived in every choice to cooperate instead of destroy, to build instead of break, to transform instead of repeat. Lyra looked at the flag one last time, then at James, then at the village around them. She spoke quietly, but her words carried weight. He came to return what he stole, and left us something rarer, peace with laughter.